Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Needed Conversations with Ryan and Victoria Cole. Today, we're going to recap some voters' issues that we talked about in our previous episodes, as well as what we're jumping back into talking about marriage and relationship, something that we're really passionate about. So stay tuned.
Yes, we are getting back to our first love, which is really the reason why we started this podcast, is our passion for family and marriage. I wrote a book on marriage. We've done a course on marriage. Both you and I have taught on it extensively, and we're passionate about it. And the reason I think why we took on the voter issues is because all of these things affect our families. And whether it's the economy or immigration or education, etc., or how you just view the government's role in our lives in general, our families are affected. And the reverse of that is true. And the reason why we promote traditional marriage is because science and statistics have shown us that in areas where traditional marriages are promoted, that the economy thrives. Educational rates increase, less high school dropout rates, and just so many things that we could just rattle off, a lot of which is in my book, I Love You More, Most, and Forever. Some of these stats that were done by reputable universities and agencies. Yeah, we wanted to just kind of recap the last couple of weeks, but before we do, guess what tomorrow is, Victoria?
What's tomorrow?
Tomorrow is our anniversary.
Oh, that's right.
We're actually recording this a little bit in advance, and right now, Victoria and I are off celebrating our 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
How's it been being married to me for 7 years?
It's been a wild ride. I think, marriage is definitely kind of like waves. That's kind of what we a lot of times call it, where there's tides coming in and there's sometimes you catch a wave, sometimes you're on rhythm with each other, sometimes you're off rhythm, and especially once you have children and life gets busier and you're busy building things, it's really easy to get, disconnected, but, it requires a lot of intentionality to pursue one another and not feel like that everything there is to know about a person, because, you start discovering that a person starts changing in different seasons of their life. So it's been a really, beautiful journey, and we've created 2 beautiful kids. And
Yep.
I think one of my favorite things, is seeing you, step into your role as a father. I think because of the things that you didn't receive as a child yourself, I think that you really stepped up and you really try to be very intentional with our kids, especially, teaching them morals and, doing devotions with them in the evenings. I think it has really created a big impact and in shaping who they are. So,
and that's not to say I didn't have a great father. In fact, my dad joined me on a couple of episodes.
Yeah, he did.
So you should go back and listen to our story and his story in particular and how that shaped him as a father. And yeah, but I've so enjoyed being married to you. There's no better person that I could have asked for to be my wife and the mother of our children. And it's been a journey. We've had some challenging moments along the way. We've stepped out in faith a whole lot. And in our short years, we've moved 3-4 times, something like that.
Yeah, this is our 4th house? Or is this our 3rd house?
This is our third house.
Third house, yeah.
But, it's been amazing journeying with you. And here's to forever. Because, I love you more, most, and forever. Well, we've been talking about these voter issues. And out of all of the things that we've talked about, what has really stood out to you the most? And if you had to put on the table your number one issue, what would that be?
I think it's what we're really passionate about is promoting marriage, and family. And I feel like that it directly affects a lot of other issues like abortion, and the economy, like you said, statistics wise. There's a lot of issues that kind of come and stem out from cultural things that a government cannot fix. I think sometimes we think that we need all these rules and regulations, and we need the government to enforce it. But in all honesty, a lot of it stems from us taking personal responsibility for our own lives
Yes.
and really running with it. And I think it starts within a home. It starts with teaching our children about cultures and respect and honor, and knowing when to stand up for themselves and for what they believe. Because we like one of the things that I really do appreciate, something that we both really are trying to instill in our children, is to push them to think. And that's what I think our society is lacking in. But again, it falls back on the statistics that we see, and the family breakdown of the family unit. And I think a lot of these problems can be solved by us really educating people how important it is for marriage to thrive and work. And that's one thing that we're really passionate about. So
Yeah. In the end, the root of our philosophy on government is that the government is not going to be able to solve our problems.
yeah.
The government is not going to allow us to have a healthy marriage. It's going to take our work and intentionality, as you talked about. And I think what that leads to is, for me, and maybe that makes me a little bit more libertarian, is let's get the government out of as much as possible and bring the government back to what its main responsibility is, which is, primarily protecting our country. And, it's the protecting of our country, and it's the preserving of the Constitution, which most people don't understand this. The United States is one of the youngest countries in the world, and yet we have one of the oldest, longest standing constitutions. Over 150 years we've had the same constitution. France has changed just about every decade with a new constitution. And I could list off countries. There's such instability when you don't have just a fundamental working structure for your government. And, there's a lot of criticisms you can throw at the United States of America, but one thing is for sure, our Constitution was such a highly masterfully crafted document that has enabled us to transition through the times and thrive as a country. And even when it comes to some of the more darkest times in our history, the Constitution has evolved in ways, especially when you add amendments, that I think should be taken very seriously when you make an amendment to the Constitution. But the Constitution as it stands today, along with the Declaration of Independence, is, I think, a living document to enable all people to thrive, to maximize their potential within this country, regardless of your gender, your skin color, your religion, how you were born. You can climb the ladder of success in this country. And that's what makes me proud to live in the United States of America. Of course, it's not as sophisticated as a document as the Bible, which is the breathed word of God, the inspired word of God. But in fact, a lot of the things that we see in the Constitution were written by people who were inspired by the Bible. And so it speaks to the strength of that document, knowing where a lot of the inspiration came from, which was the Word of God.
Yeah, one of the things that when I first came to the United States and, learning English in school, one of my favorite subjects to study was actually history, because honestly, to me, the United States Constitution and the way it was established, how they, separated themselves from Great Britain, and how they came here to seek, religious freedom. And I just thought the history of the whole United States was so beautiful and astounding, and this document. So yeah, I was very proud to come through this process myself, and to immerse myself in the culture.
Victoria knows more about U.S. history than a lot of us natural born
Most
Americans.
people don't know that you have they give you 100 questions, to study
Yeah.
for citizenship, and then they only ask a couple, but you have to study all of them because you don't know which one they're going to do. But yeah, I remember I took him to my neighbor, and she's like the sweetest elderly lady, and we call her Grandma Barbara, because she doesn't have any children, and she's like, honey, I don't know half of the stuff that you're studying, because she was going to help me study for it. And it was so funny. But I really think that it's a beautiful history, regardless of its flaws and the
Yeah.
things that we have struggled with. The beauty of United States, I think, is that we have the capability to overcome. And we had great leaders emerge, like Martin
Mm-hmm.
Luther King Jr., who pushed for justice and, made such
Civil rights. Yeah.
phenomenal speeches that we carry with us today. And we
And
need that.
we've been able to make adjustments. If you look at the United States as a person, we are really just now coming into out of adolescence and into adulthood as a nation, because we're
Mm-hmm.
very young. When you think of some of the more European countries or African countries, some of these nations have been around for millennia, like
Mm-hmm.
thousands of years, and they've had the time to mature and step into their own, and many of them still don't have it together. But for whatever reason, the United States of America in less than 200 years has become who we are today. And um, our ability to progress at the speed that we have is just supernatural. To be able to come through, most people, when they think of things like the civil rights movement or women equality, or a lot of the things in our country, or the Civil War, or the Revolutionary War, we think it was so long ago, and in many cases it's only just years.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the civil rights movement in the U.S. It's still in the mid 1900s, and so you're talking about 50, 60, 70 years ago, and it's not that far away, and look how far we've come. And I think that's something we have to look at, especially during these times when I think it's to our detriment to look at the history of our country and, yes, recognize the bad times that we've endured and the things that we have allowed to go on in our midst. But if we go back to the foundation of our country, yes, it was flawed men and women who started it, but God used it to create a country where we can be free
Mm-hmm.
and we can pursue our purpose. We can worship God in liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be to our detriment to go back to those foundations and begin to rewrite that history
Mm-hmm.
and begin to, demonize the systems that are currently standing within our country because of the bad history and the inflection points in the United States over the years. And I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think,
it's like a person, having the past,
right.
and the past doesn't define you. You know what I mean? We grow, and those challenges are the things that help us address the issues. Like if you don't have the challenges, you end up not addressing those things, that we're dealing with. So I think that the challenges is what shapes and molds us, regardless, of the damage that it has caused a
Yeah.
lot of people, and the hurt and the pain. I mean, I
And I
think.
think it's a good illustration to view the United States as like a person.
Hmm.
If you take the United States and say, we're just coming out of our teenage years into adulthood in terms of how old we are as a country.
Right.
But even in today's cancel culture society, teenagers, and I feel so bad for teenagers who are online, and when you're 11, 12, 13, even 15 and 16, you say some stupid things, you do some stupid things,
Hmm.
and that kind of stigmatizing you for the rest of your life. In many ways, I feel like that's what we've done to our country as well.
Mm-hmm.
And claiming that our country is in its foundations racist at its core. I believe that obviously racism exists, and over the course of the history of the United States of America, slavery occurred, injustices have taken place, but are we as a country a racist institution? I would say no, we're not.
Mm-hmm.
Are all of the institutions that exist in the United States racist? No. Um, and the more I think that we try to say that, the worse off we're going to become, because there is no solution. It's a hole that you keep on digging even further. Can you address the issues within systems? Sure. Are any of our systems perfect? Absolutely not. But the vast majority of people in the United States of America are good,
Mm-hmm.
and we've evolved as a culture.
Well, I think if we fall victim to our past, then we are always going to place blame on something that has happened
Yeah.
to us, and there has to be some kind of a payout. But we know that, being a victim to, your past doesn't move you forward because you're so blinded by what happened to you. So you're stuck in this little box, and it doesn't make it right what happened to you,
Mm,
but you have to confront those things. And yes, we have to have those conversations. And I think this is why, we started this podcast too, and even dedicated a couple of episodes for these issues because it is a needed conversation. It's something that, our parents, our grandparents
yeah.
might have had thoughts and maybe misunderstandings of specific cultures based on their experiences with a specific culture. But this is what I love about, now we are living amongst so many generations. And I think
Hmm.
that's one of the biggest challenges that we have too, because we have so many different mindsets and we're trying to like piece it all together.
I think if we're not careful, we with the progress that I think the youngest of generations are living in can be eroded,
Mm-hmm.
and we can return to a day when we are judging people based on their skin color or their religion or whatever, and not by the content of their character, as Martin Luther King Jr. said. And I know this is all very touchy topics, but and we're not experts in any way. We're just talking out to you guys out there our experience with it all, and the
Mm-hmm.
many conversations I've talked hours on end over this last year with friends from all backgrounds about the issues that our country is facing. And the vast majority of them do not believe that we are inherently evil as a country, but that we are flawed in some ways, but not so much so that we cannot overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what I teach too on Monday nights. Over this year, I've spent a lot of time just returning to the gospel, the foundation from the book of Ephesians, Romans, all of these passages. The gospel is a book, or is a story of reconciliation. The gospel of the kingdom brings us all together, unified into one body from every tribe, every tongue, and every nation. And we have the blueprints for the world to be able to thrive, because
Mm-hmm.
God's original plan and purpose was for us in the garden to be fruitful, multiply, subdue, have dominion. And we look at that mandate. The only way that we're able to fulfill that mandate is if we get our homes right
Mm-hmm.
and return back to God's foundational principles for how the home is supposed to be structured, the importance of a husband and a wife in that one flesh marriage, and how that affects how children are raised. Because whenever you get married, you don't just become a husband or wife. You actually step in immediately to this spiritual dimension of fathering and mothering. And
Mm-hmm.
regardless of if and when you have biological children, you automatically step into that role in society where you are looked at by the next generation as leaders
Mm-hmm.
and mentors and guides. And this is why we think the conversation around marriage has to be elevated and brought back to God's original intent. Because if our marriages can thrive, our children will thrive, the next generation will thrive, our communities and cities, our churches will live again, our every aspect of society begins to come into alignment when you get the marriage right.
And I think it stems back to knowing your purpose. And I think that's one thing that, we walk single people through a 90-day mentorship program where we talk about how important it is to know your purpose. Because if you don't know your purpose, then you're not looking, you're looking for a spouse through a completely different lens. You don't view it from a perception of, this is a forever kind of love, and this is something that I want to create a lasting, relationship with.
Right.
Instead, because you don't know the purpose of marriage, you may, just don't want to be lonely, or you want to step into a relationship where
And the
it
work
just feels like it's time,
Yeah, and the world has
So,
flipped dating on its head.
right.
And we date for the wrong reasons. We approach the dating process I just completely backwards. And we have just come through our first season of mentoring single people. And we've taken 90 days. Our first crew was about 25 people, some really great singles, people who have been divorced before, people who are single parents, people who have never, who are very kind of wet behind the ears when it comes to the whole dating scene. And we've all grown together, and we've poured into them. We have video lessons and all of that. We're getting ready to open this back up to the public at the top of the year, and you want to be first. We want to give you this opportunity to jump into this 90-day mentorship, and you to be the first to know. And the first people to sign up always get the best deals. So if you would, go to my website, ryancoleempowerment.com right now. All the information is in the description there or in the podcast information. Click the link and sign up to our email list and be the first to find out when open enrollment is happening, because if you can get marriage right, you can get the rest of your life together.
Right.
It's outside of Jesus Christ as your personal savior, it's the most important decision that you'll ever make. What if I told you that the rest of the quality of your life would be affected by who you choose to marry? Wouldn't you take it more seriously? Wouldn't you want the tools and to make that decision more effectively? Because you're looking for someone to partner with, to come alongside a common mission and to align with in your purpose. And so we're going to give you all those tools. Not only can you order my book on my website, but you can be the first to sign up for our next 90-day mentorship, the I Love You More, Most, and Forever course.
Yes. And I
Yeah,
love the fact that we do talk about, personal purpose, but like you said, a marriage should also have a mission. And that's another thing that we're personally taking the time to. Usually during this time of the year, we start creating a vision for
that's
the
right.
next year. And that's what we want to encourage you guys to do as well. Don't wait until January 1st to try to sit down and write a couple of goals down. Really do it like a couple of months before, and really sit down in a quiet place to really strategize what you want to accomplish. We
Yes.
have things that we personally want to accomplish, but there's things that we both sit down and we, want to partner together in what God has called us to do and what we want to attain. And honestly, every single year, I feel like that list gets completed a lot quicker. Within the first 4 or 5 months, I say that we start a new year, we
Yes.
complete it because we write it down. I mean, it says in the Bible, write it down, make it plain. And usually, if it's like in your mind somewhere, it just gets like thrown around from time to time. But make it plain, write it somewhere, be intentional about, looking at it and chipping away at it every single day.
And you
So,
have to do that as a couple. And here's what I
yeah.
want us to do. We've got the month of November left, that we're going to be doing podcasts. We're going to take the month of December off, and we're going to do a reset at the beginning of the year. But for the next 4 episodes, we're going to be talking about the importance of vision and how to write a vision for your life, how you should do that either in preparation for marriage or with your spouse. And really, it's important to do it before you get married, because you are able to use that as a sounding board. Your vision that you have written will kind of be the thing that you bounce that person off of and say, do we have the same vision? Do we have the same goals? Do we have the same purpose? So we're going to give you the tools how to write a vision. And then if you're married and you've never had a vision, or you are trying to combine visions with a spouse, we're going to give you some strategies as well. I always begin thinking about the new year in Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. So it's kind of the jump start for the new year that I get. That's normally around September when we step into the Jewish New Year. And then I start listening for God. And then we got married in October, as we mentioned at the top of this podcast. So literally at this very moment, Victoria and I are probably somewhere in a hotel room writing vision. And we're talking about the things that we're going to accomplish in the years to come. And we've set a long-term vision for like 20 years, 10 years. And then we take every single year to reapproach that vision and readjust it based on the times, based on things that have happened, what we've been able to accomplish, and what we've kind of been distracted from, and get us back on course. And that really helps unify us. And we do it before January 1st comes around. Because by the time January comes around, you're already a day late and a dollar short, as people like to say. But we are going to be well equipped going into the new year because we're approaching it in October. And we love that it's right around our anniversary too. And every year we try to kind of get away and do something away from the kids. Got to have that parent time, but to write a vision. So we want you to join us for the next several weeks as we jump into relationships and back to our first love when it comes to this podcast, which is talking about marriage and all of that good stuff. But we're going to do so from the perspective of vision and how you and your spouse or future spouse can write a vision.
I'm excited because it's going to really help you jumpstart on your year. So if it's not your yearly habit, we are hoping that by those 4 weeks, you'll establish a habit of writing things down so that you can accomplish them. So that's going to be awesome.
It's going to be really good.
So make sure if you have any questions, if you want us to mention anything, or you have some specifics that you want us to mention in our upcoming episodes, be sure to message us on Instagram, or you can email Ryan on his website.
On YouTube.
Yes, and also be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast as well. This helps us get it out to other people, because that's what we're really passionate about. It's really helping other people to build strong families and have really good relationships. So
if you're on YouTube, hit that bell notification, like it, help us with the algorithms so we can reach more with our message of empowerment. And again, make sure you go to ryancoleempowerment.com to sign up. Be the first to know about our 90-day mentorship if you're single, dating, or engaged. And then we got some stuff in the works for people who are already married, which I'm excited to announce in 2021. And then we got some things for parents too. One special project that I'm working on to hope to release in 2021. So you want to stay tuned.
We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for joining us for Needed Conversations in this podcast and for all of your support. God bless.